What could the technology industry learn from psychedelics, and what could psychedelics learn from the technology industry? This event is happening live in New York City, January 24th. As someone who has worked in tech for 15 years, and as a woman and a brown woman working in tech, and as a very passionate psychonaut, I wanted to give my 2 cents on this. Obviously, this is a huge topic, but we're going to cover as much ground as we can. So first of all, what psychedelics can learn from tech, I just want to offer a disclaimer that on a global scale, psychedelics does not need the help from hyper-capitalist and toxic nature that is tech. I think that this conversation is very much from the lens of psychedelic companies popping up in the West, not psychedelics as we know it from indigenous cultures, for example, or cultures outside of the United States. So with that in mind, psychedelic companies need to prioritize sustainable growth over hypergrowth. I've worked in tech enough where we demand 50% year-over-year growth, which is insane and ridiculous. That is not sustainable. Instead, what ends up happening is you sacrifice your ethics, your product, your employees' well-being, the reputation of your company to achieve this growth that investors want you to have that super quick hyper exit. But instead, I think what ends up happening a lot is companies just end up breaking down and deteriorates the product in the company and don't end up achieving the thing that they wanted to rush into in the first place. Number two, who is considered an expert in this field? Because what I am seeing already in the psychedelic industry, that it's very much if you are in the medical field, if you're a PhD, then that is what denotes if you are an expert in this industry. And we tend to forget that the original experts of psychedelics and of plant medicine has been A, indigenous people, and two, psychonauts, people that have been experimenting with these substances way before the psychedelic renaissance. So I think that we need to expand our peripheral of who is an expert in this field and who actually has the experience to help people and to move this industry forward in an ethical way. Because as a PhD, yes, you might have scientific evidence to prove something that psychonauts and indigenous people have known for thousands of years. Number three, avoiding overhype. The worst thing that could happen to the psychedelic renaissance is if we overhype companies that just end up busting and we essentially blame psychedelics as not working when really it's the companies and the industry that is not working for psychedelics. So I just think that we need to be careful of overhyping any company, regardless of what they're trying to do and what problem they're trying to solve and how they are trying to help, because we are still dismantling the war on drugs and the propaganda of the 60s. And so any wrong move can take us back to this idea that psychedelics are a scary and a harmful thing. Number four, privacy. This might be an obvious one, but with the legal landscape of psychedelics currently and them still being taboo, I think it's important for companies to protect and preserve the privacy of users. A lot of industries still drug test, so obviously for them this would be off limits, but I still think that there is a huge responsibility for psychedelic companies to do this. Nowadays, there's always a data leak, and I think that, again, because the psychedelic industry is so fragile right now when it comes to public opinion, I think that there has to be extra care taken in this area. Now, what could tech learn from psychedelics? One is a holistic approach to business. So one of the things that I've seen in my tech career time and time again is how when a company is between 4 and maybe 15 to 20 employees, you're a Series A, we all work together and we really have a holistic approach and a holistic view of the business. That tends to deteriorate as the company gets larger and more complex. And part of it is just the nature of companies just becoming more complex. But I do think that It's very important for certain teams to work together as much as possible without redundant meetings and communication. So for example, product and marketing, they should be working together. And a lot of times it seems that those two teams are always competing with one another. A win for marketing generally comes at the expense of product and vice versa. This is such a huge one. I could talk about this forever, but value deep thought and creativity and rethinking work structures. Even with remote work becoming just more normal, we've seen how so many, especially leaders, want people to go back to the office, even though it's been proven time and time again that people are more productive at home. They think that nothing kills creativity more than being in the office. Doesn't mean that people can't meet in real life, but it means prioritizing human design and where humans can be the most creative. Okay, I have 3 minutes. Long-term social impact. What's the purpose of this company? What are you trying to do? How are you going to give back? What's the reciprocity cycle of your company? Those things are starting to matter a lot more. Collaboration over competition. I believe in a world where we can all take a slice of the pie without this violent destruction of your competition, especially when it comes to marketing and especially when it comes to online marketing, for example. I believe that companies can partner more often than just compete against each other and raise costs, which ultimately just ends up helping Facebook and Google. And fifth, incorporating mindfulness and well-being in the foundation of the company. Europe does this. They allow people to just take annual sabbaticals. A lot of large companies do this, but I do think that it's important to give people time off and not make them feel bad about it. And this needs to come from the top down. We need to have CEOs and managers telling people to not check their email when they're out on vacation. They don't need to be available when they are out of office. It is okay to take mental health days just because you are having a bad day. You don't need to be physically sick to take time off. And the amount of layoffs happening in the last 12 to 14 months show me that the tech industry doesn't see people as humans. They see them as pawns. What I miss? Tell me your thoughts and let me know if you end up going. Tickets are $20 and there's only a few left, so check it out.